So, for some who may think I've gone a little quiet for a while, that is true, but then I do have some stuff planned, but it might not materialise until 2020. For example, at the moment, the big thing going on with kind of superhero media is the CW's Crisis on Infinite Earths, which I am watching, and I have enjoyed it so far, but I do kind of want to wait until it's finished before I review the entire thing. So yeah, it's not. We're not going to get. We've had the first three parts. We're not going to get the final two until mid-January. So just be patient. I will get to those, but for the time being, I'm putting those off for a bit. And of course, the start of 2020 will bring in new Doctor Who, so that'll be something for me to review when the time comes. But just to fill the void a bit, I'd like to talk once again about certain characters that I think could fit into the MCU. Now, with Disney's acquisition of 20th Century Fox, it seems inevitable that at some point, in some form, we will get the forms of the Fantastic Four or the X-Men in the MCU. They seem like a given. But then there are also a lot of characters that maybe fans haven't heard of. I mean, before the big movie in 2014, very few average cinema goers actually heard of the Guardians of the Galaxy. They were a kind of a circus B team, but now everyone knows who the Guardians of the Galaxy is. And they look to try to do the same sort of thing with the Eternals next year. So, with that in mind, I thought I'd come up with I'd look through and find a few characters that maybe you aren't entirely familiar with, but ones that could be integrated into the MCU. Start off with, first on the list, Dane Whitman. Now, this is one character who has actually been confirmed is coming. For those who don't know, Dane Whitman is a form of the Marvel Comics character Black Knight. He's one that I haven't read much of him, but then in the last few months or so, I actually became really interested in the character. I think it would be good to see him on the big screen. I mean, he's usually played by actor Kit Harington in the Eternals movie, and from what I can gather, he's a legacy hero, in that there have been several forms of him: a Sir Percy, a Nathan Garrett, who was a villain, and you got Dane Whitman. He wields a weapon known as the Ebony Blade, and rules over kind of like a medieval kingdom style land, which would be cool to see on the big screen. It would be nice to see. I mean, we've seen Marvel do outer space. We've seen them do the 1990s. Maybe it would be good to see them do kind of a medieval type of thing, just to mix things up a bit. Next up, Walter Newell, or as he's better known, Stingray. Now, one character that fans kind of want to see integrated in some form into a Marvel universe is the character of Namor, who I think is the King of Atlantis. I'm not entirely sure, but I feel that if they introduce Namor, you could probably go even further than that and introduce Stingray, kind of a water-based hero who hasn't seen much action in terms of other media. I mean, he does pop up as a playable character in Lego Marvel Superheroes 2, but I feel it would be good to see him on the big screen. He's kind of a scientist who kind of creates an underwater suit that kind of allows him to fight, and I think it would be good to see. I mean, if they introduce Namor, they can introduce characters like Stingray and villains like Atuma. Yeah, I feel that there's a lot of routes they could go. I mean, DC showed with Aquaman that an underwater superhero movie can work, so I'd love to see what Marvel can do with it. Next up, Brian Baddock, or as he's otherwise known, Captain Britain. Now, you might think this is a bit of a cop-out, given a British copy of Captain America, but it's not actually that much. I mean, while he does have that kind of idea, he's not so much a super soldier from the 1940s as he is kind of a member of a long-standing corps, similar to stuff like the Nova Corps or the Guardians of the Galaxy. He's some part of some kind of space corps, and has kind of similar powers to that, which I think would be kind of nice to see. I mean, it would be nice to see them integrate more British actors. I mean, don't get me wrong, we've had British actors in the MCU before, like Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman, but yeah, it would be nice to see a few more. Richard Rider. or as he's otherwise known, Nova. This one, I think, is probably the easiest one that they could integrate into the MCU. I mean, there's a little bit of problematic nowadays, given that it said at the start of Avengers Infinity War that Thanos invaded Xandar and destroyed the Nova Corps, but then that also does provide some footing to introduce Richard Rider. Maybe he's one of the last surviving members of the Nova Corps, and thus is given the technology in order to become the hero. So I feel, yeah, introducing him as a lone survivor of the Nova Corps and then showing what he can truly do and how he feels he has to avenge them, that I think would be a nice idea for the MCU to go down. Next up, Heather Douglas, or as she's otherwise known, Moondragon. This one is a little bit odd. Heather Douglas is, well, she's said to be the daughter of seemingly an ordinary man, but during an invasion by Thanos on one of the planets, she and her parents were involved in a car crash where her parents were seemingly killed and she was thrown from the wreckage. And her father would eventually, his consciousness would eventually be turned into the body of the man who would eventually become Drax the Destroyer. And since we've already got Drax the Destroyer in the MCU, Moondragon seems like a good route to go. I mean, while we don't know exactly when Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is going to turn up, as it's not in the slate for Marvel's Phase 4, having her pop up in the third film, that would be nice. I mean, we're already on track for Adam Warlock, so maybe introducing Moondragon at this point could be a nice way to go. I mean, whether they choose to go with her classic comic design, which is kind of like a blue costume with a bald shaven head, that'll be up to them, or whether they go for something more like Marvel Ultimate Alliance, which has kind of a more regal green costume and black flowing hair, that's up to them. But I think showing Drax having a daughter, someone he can really open up to, aside from Mantis, I feel that would be a nice route for them to go down. And the final one I want to talk about is Jericho Drumm, or is otherwise known Dr. Voodoo. Now, from what I can gather, this is an African-American hero who uses magic like Doctor Strange, but his is more kind of voodoo-based magic. And from what I can gather from various encyclopedias that I've read, he would eventually gain the title of the Sorcerer Supreme after Doctor Strange ended up losing it. So I don't know, I mean, we've already got a Doctor Strange movie set to come up in the works, that being Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which is due to be part of Phase 4. And that one is, they may already have enough star power there with Elizabeth Olsen reprising her role as Scarlet Witch, and they may have plans for Mordo, either in the next film or later down the line, or they might be playing Nightmare for the second film. I don't know. It's entirely... But I feel introducing Jericho Drumm later down the line as Dr. Voodoo, I feel if they didn't do that, it would be a huge missed opportunity. I mean, he sounds like the kind of character who... I mean, I know we are getting a lot of African-American heroes in the upcoming films, such as Black Panther, but, you know what, I feel they could go even further, and showing him alongside Doctor Strange, having Dr. Voodoo as kind of a more kind of darker version of the hero, yeah, I think it would be good to see. But there you go, there are 6 possible characters that I think they could introduce into the MCU as possible heroes. I might do one later on for villains, because I've got a few ideas down the line for those, maybe like Kang the Conqueror or such, but you know what, 6 possible heroes or characters to introduce into the MCU. Dane Whitman, Walter Newell, Brian Baddock, Richard Rider, Heather Douglas, and Jericho Drumm. Anyway, are there any particular characters that you would like to see turn up in the MCU? Let me know. Anyway, till next time, see ya. Oh, and happy holidays.